You're up.
Okay, welcome to the February 19th meeting of the Kennebunkport Planning Board. Attendance-wise, what you see is it. We just have the three of us, but that's our quorum, so we're good.
As long as we all agree.
Yes, we all agree. Well, anyway, we have a couple of people on vacation, a couple of, one is sick, and one's at the ballet. So, anyway, let's, first step is we have 2 minutes. We have the, which we had one of these the last time we got together, but anyway. Any problems with the minutes of January 15th?
The only thing I can think of is under item number 2, the Lord and Harrington one.
Yes.
Like the third full paragraph down, it says, I asked if there would be condominium documents. I think it was Ed that asked that. I went through and the way I remember it. I
Yeah.
could be wrong, but that's the only thing I saw.
Well, we can just ask him to correct it to say Mr. Francis, since he's
Yeah.
not here to defend himself.
Right. Why not?
Okay, so, let me hear a motion on the minutes of January 15th.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of January 15th as amended.
I'll second that.
And all those in favor, so, good.
Okay.
Then the minutes of our little meeting where Ed read the Lord and Harrington, just read the finding of facts that morning, and we were all there. So, anyway, so they looked fine to me.
They're fine.
Okay. So I move, we approve the meeting of the February 5th minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Okay. So we're good. We move to the agenda, and the first item is item 200101, Apple Blossom Lane LLC. It's the initial review on the final subdivision plan.
Wait.
Okay. So, take it, Jim.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for the opportunity to return. We're now back with the,
Introduce yourself.
oh, Jim
for the
Logan, I'm sorry, I'm Jim Logan with Longview Partners, soil scientist, wetland scientist, and site evaluator for some 30-plus years now. Last 4 years or so as Longview Partners, now operating an office in Kennebunk. We were here now we're here for a final plan review. We've submitted our final subdivision plan back to the planning board. We started with this proposal to create 2 new lots from the original lot that Jonathan had in the subdivision where his house was. And we were here in March of 2019 for the sketch plan. We followed it with a site walk in April of 2019. Where the board had a chance to review the 2 proposed new lots. We started our preliminary plan process in September of 2019, and we received our preliminary plan approval. I believe that was the 2nd of October. Prior to this meeting, I will note one item of correction. Lisa Harmon has brought to our attention again that our application materials referred to the incorrect map number for the subdivision. However, the most important component is the subdivision plan, and Frank Emery has the correct map referred to on the subdivision plan. So it would be important to note that the findings of fact end up with that map 15 and not the map 12 that we incorrectly put on the front of our application submission. Okay? Aside from that one housekeeping item,
Did you send us a corrected page, or what?
we have not yet, no, but we will.
Okay.
It's something we'll do prior to final. Although Werner indicated to me momentarily ago that really it is just the plan and the findings that matter most of all, and not so much the application submission. But
Well, it'd be
we'll
nice to
correct
get the
Pete.
findings right, and so,
We will correct it.
thank you.
So 12, not 15.
It's
Correct.
12, it's MAC 12 to, is that right?
See, ironically,
Yeah,
our
the-
title, our application is correct, our title page is I would tell you to tear.
Oh, the application
Just
is
tear your
correct.
title page out and throw it away, okay? And then we're correct. Can I just request that, I just tear them right out and throw
Oh,
them out?
I see, okay.
Okay? And I think that gets us where we need to be.
15, how about I
You know what this
scroll
is?
it on the front?
This is the
Then
story.
we're done.
Thank
Remind
you.
me again what 1J is? Was that the whole thing
And originally it was.
originally?
Yes,
Yeah, that's what
yes.
I thought.
And then since the date of our preliminary plan approval and what gave rise to this application, we have gotten our DEP tier permit and our permit by rule for the stream crossing on Lot 7C, proposed Lot 7C. That includes several other smaller wetland impacts. That was, and that note was added to the subdivision plan as well, that references the permit numbers that we got for that. We've also gotten and obtained the Corps of Engineers permit as well for that exact same set of fills. And the Corps permit actually referred to the vernal pool that is on Lot 7C, which the Corps wanted the 100-foot setback identified right on the plan. We've since put that on the subdivision plan as a protective dimension to make sure that any house built on Lot 7C is at least 100 feet to that depression. I'll go further to say that we obtained a determination, a final determination from Inland Fisheries and Wildlife and the DEP that the vernal pool in question that I just mentioned is not a significant vernal pool per the DEP standards. And that since we've received that official processing back from them, we believe it's been added to the state's website officially as not significant. So we're complying both with the DEP standard and the Corps standard at that point. We got what else? We re-recorded the revised deed at the registry, and we've provided a copy back to you folks that removed the restriction for further subdivision. We provided information to the board. And actually, if I was to tie this together, I would be smart to say that the re-recorded or the revised deed that removed that restriction was point number 1 brought to my attention in Nina Perlmutter's very concise summary letter back to us. We identified specimen, or what are known as specimen or significant trees by the town's ordinance definition. I think it's 16-inch diameter or larger. And on the 2 lots that were proposed, we found 6 of them. 4 of the 6, as you can see by the submission, are very near setback lines. And I suspect only 1 and possibly 2 might need to be removed to actually do construction. 1 is somewhat near the location where the driveway comes into the building window. And we've submitted that to you. That was point number 2, Nina's letter. The Corps permit was point number 4 in her letter, as was the DEP. We also got a confirmation from the Maine Historic Preservation Commission that we don't have any historic sites or other high-value.
I didn't see that in the application. Did that just come in?
No,
Or is
it
it in
should
there?
have been, it should be a letter that was,
There were like 2.
the letter from Kirk Money.
Yeah, that's in the app.
Is it in there?
Yeah,
Okay, I must
Yeah.
have missed it.
Yeah.
just,
When I was going
I just
through it.
passed it by.
Okay, I thought it was in there. And that referred to Nina's point number 3. We also revised the final plan with protective notes regarding the wetlands, the vernal pool dimensioning. We had Frank Emery add a note about the waivers that the board granted as well. Those are right on the plan. We included a change to the plan that was the FEMA flood zone, which needed to be shown on the final subdivision plan. And we also added a note about the width of the Apple Blossom Lane. Okay? those were items all required for the final submission. And then we did not yet provide a Mylar for the board to sign. We just had the signed paper copies, but once we find it's to the satisfaction of the board, we will provide the Mylar or 2 Mylars for official signing. We'll get those from Frank. Okay, that's about what I have to date. Does the board have questions further? I was hoping that we addressed most of the items.
So mostly, we're still in the situation that on this subdivision plan, when we approve it, there'll be no construction yet. And so certain of the factors, when we approve a final subdivision plan, this will be a stage that we're approving that doesn't have any construction. And you still have the waiver of financial capacity, traffic study, open space requirement, and anything like the
Right.
fire department checking off on things. And
Well, there's really nothing for the fire department because your letter back to us concluded, and we presented to the board in the preliminary plan phase the fact that the houses would be sprinkled to the satisfaction
Right.
of the national fire standards. That would be an approved plan that the fire chief would be signing off on, or the code
And
enforcement
that would be
officer.
part of the
That's
building.
part of a building
the site plan.
application that Jonathan would need to submit to
Right.
build on the lots.
Okay.
And Nina, I assume you mean no construction, meaning no infrastructure construction, no road construction, no utility construction, other than the individual houses.
Right, you've
Yes.
got the road on the plan, but you
Correct.
don't have the houses and
Correct.
so forth, or the wells or the septic systems.
And the road's already there, the main road is
Correct.
already there.
Correct.
So you don't have to be paying a deposit in case you don't finish that. That's-
Correct, that's what we
that's the
assumed.
point, yeah.
Well,
That's
my
why we-
understanding is the road needs to be extended, and you need to put in culverts when you do it, or have you
Those-
already got the road in there?
Those are the driveways.
There's only,
Those are just the individual
those are private
driveways.
driveways proposed,
Private
no
driveways.
additional road.
Okay, okay, so it's considered driveways.
Those, both of them are private drives,
Okay.
and thus they are the narrowest they can possibly be. And when we proposed those crossings to both the Corps and the DEP, they were intended to be just as narrow as they could be, to do as the smallest amount of wetland impact as possible. Although I'm getting some pushback from the Corps, and the Corps doesn't care as much about a footprint. They seem to want a taller culvert now. So, yeah, it's interesting. When the dominoes of environmental don't always lean in the same direction, and one department or agency wants to see less wetland fill, and we do 2-to-1 side slopes, and another department or another agency wants to see wildlife passage through a culvert, and
Well,
that,
maybe they saw bigger turtles.
what's that?
Maybe they saw bigger turtles.
Well, I wonder, because when they're arguing for tall culverts, I want to say, are we fitting a turtle in there, or we want to have a white-tailed deer run through? Because they want some pretty tall culverts at times. Anyway, that's an aside, we got that squared away.
All right. You've marked the flood hazard areas on there, I noted.
Yes, that was also,
Okay.
like I say, a requirement of the final plan. Frank took that right off of the.
And so we
FEMA.
don't need an estimated value as in 8.2?
No, I mean, we don't typically look at an estimated value for the individual,
Homes, yeah.
individual driveway construction. If we were dealing with, what we would deem required infrastructure, and that would be the road. Road and any associated stormwater improvements related to the road, then we would be looking for financial capacity.
So that would be something we would state in the finding of facts, that it isn't needed or something, right?
And you could certainly address why you approved the waiver.
Right,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, neighbors, zoning, culverts, building lines, open spaces. So we still haven't identified open spaces, you still want the waiver there?
I would say we have, to the extent that we've shown building windows where construction can happen, and anywhere outside of those building windows aren't really approved for construction of a dwelling. I guess I could do, if you would like, a different labeling or something like that, but I felt like the lots were sort of designed to meet that standard. Again, recognizing that the way the subdivision evolved didn't really give us the opportunity to create open space in the fashion you normally would with a cluster subdivision.
But you're not dedicating those open spaces to the public, right?
Correct.
You're just,
Correct.
okay.
There's a lot of them out there, too.
Okay, trees have been identified. This trees, okay. You have all the permits then?
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
That was the big delay getting here.
Yeah.
Back to you folks, was the length of time it took to get those permits.
Okay. So I guess we would put in the condition there that no construction until a plan came forward that satisfied the waivers and performance capacity and so forth. Or do we do it by individual lots? We don't have to worry about that?
Well, I mean, we wouldn't typically ask for financial capacity for construction on an individual home lot.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that, it's part of a permit submission that we would ask for, financial or technical capacity for that. We would issue a building permit and a driveway construction permit that's gonna match what the submissions are. Just take, for example, lot 7C, and that would be part of the overall permit approval process for building a home out there. And certainly they wouldn't be eligible for a certificate of occupancy unless that was built per the approved plan.
Okay. Well, I don't think I have any more questions. Anybody else?
No, I'm good. Did you have any questions, John?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, then I guess we should
Find this complete?
find this application complete, and we can schedule the hearing for the March 4th meeting, or the 3rd, whatever.
I believe it is March 4th, is the Wednesday. If it's a Wednesday meeting we're talking about, like this, it is the 4th, I believe, because that's the day I'm flying out. So,
Okay.
provided this is adequate and satisfactory, I will attempt in favor of John Trudeau to have my partner Bill O'Connor here
Okay.
the night of that meeting. You can meet my
Okay.
partner, and hopefully he can carry the torch for Longview and get the approval.
Okay.
Or be here to accept the approval.
And will you have the Mylars for us to sign at that point? Or,
I will do my best to get them. I'll talk to Frank Emery. I think it'll be pretty easy. His office isn't far from mine down in Wells, so
Yeah.
we'll square that away, and I'll get
well, I mean, we may,
two Mylars.
Just-
signing the Mylars is usually done at finding of facts at time, but, either one. If you,
Well, I just assume if it, like I say, we don't have changes and I can commit to it, we'll go ahead and commit to the Mylars, and Bill can bring them
Yep.
in the next meeting, and then you can have them for whatever time you need until you do the
Good.
findings and
Sounds good.
marry them together.
Okay.
All right.
I'll make a motion to find this application complete.
I'll second it.
Okay,
All in
all
favor?
in favor? Okay,
Thank you, board members.
so, and you'll see your partner on the 4th.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Okay. So, item number 2 is 200-102, Paul and Lisa Henderson, Sebago Techniques, authorized agent, shoreline stabilization and riprap. So,
All right.
Thank you. Steve Doe from Sebago Technics. Also with me tonight is Paul Henderson. This project was in front of the board for replacing the house at this location. At the time, Sebago was involved in, looking at the erosion, trying to see how involved we want to get with it. Since then, Paul's decided to go ahead and pursue stabilizing the shoreline, considering what he's going to be doing for the house. So I know that site's very visible. I do have some pictures if you need to see what the site looks like, which I'll pass around anyway. But it is a very visible site for those of you that know the area.
Thank you, Steve.
So these are just various pictures. Most of them are current, but there is one down in the lower left corner that shows what the house looked like. 1930s. There used to be a timber retaining wall along there to stabilize that. That's long gone. Some of the remnants are still there, and you can see that in the center picture on the top. And the majority of the erosion, from what we can understand, is a result of the culverts that went in on Main Street there, North Street. As the water, and these are located right over here, and the water's coming in, and it's really creating a big churning in that cove area there, and it's causing some erosion along this side of the property. He's not able to get any vegetation to be stabilized there. So what we're proposing to do is, if you look at the center picture, you see quite a large eroded area there. This is where the timbers are. Typically, you would come in there and you just rip-wrap that whole area that's eroded, but that's not really what we want to do. And we've worked with the DEP and the Army Corps on this. We've met out there numerous times. And what our goal is to create a more of a steeper slope with the riprap and keep it very small, and then use the excavation from placement of the riprap and use that as a fill material on the upward side of the riprap, and then vegetate that with marsh grass. And we're only doing the riprap where it's needed. In other words, right where the house is. If you look, if you're familiar with the area, the erosion continues down the shoreline here. And there's also some down here, but we don't want to focus on that. The DEP was very adamant that they want the marsh to continue to do what it does, where the shorelines erode, they revegetate. It's kind of a very dynamic area, but in this particular location, we want to protect the house.
Steve, where's the property line along that shore?
So the property line's here, the rest of it follows this line here, and then I think it just,
It's officially the middle of the creek.
middle of the creek, okay. So that would be,
Okay.
that would be out here,
Okay, so it goes right out there.
yeah.
Okay.
Very wet lot.
So there's kind of two areas that we're rip-wrapping. We're rip-wrapping right at the bottom where the kind of the mud flats are, and that will never be vegetated. And this area here is existing marsh grass, so we're just rip-wrapping the eroded section there, and keeping the grass there. This section here is all eroded. Here we're gonna put new riprap in, tie into a rock outcrop over here, and then revegetate all this with marsh grass. This location is where the existing house is that overhangs. That's just replanting that. This here is the wooded hillside over here. This is the upper parking lot. And here, the bottom of the slope is just getting undercut by the water coming in and out. So there, we're just rip-wrapping the toe of the slope where it's undercut, and then we'll replant in front of that with marsh grass. Anything that we've disturbed, we'll be replanting that. And then one of the kind of the last things is in the riprap itself, we're actually gonna incorporate some of the silts and muds into that, so hopefully if that can stay in the riprap, that eventually will grow and have some marsh grass there to kind of help hide that, because it is a very visible site.
The water still moves pretty fast in there. You may not be able to keep mud in there.
yeah, you know, eventually over time, stuff may kind of silt into that, but, you know, that's an intent, is to try to get some of that. You know, this is a little flatter area as far as the water movement, but,
One thing that concerns me is you say you're going to do this while the ground is frozen. You haven't got very much time.
no, we're not gonna have any frozen, this area never really freezes.
No, it isn't, and
Yeah.
I've noticed that, well, at least in my place, in the muds along the river, they not only never freeze, but you can sink into them pretty deep.
Yeah,
So it's not an easy job to do, but right now, you have birds coming back into there for the spring.
I don't know if this is, there's, DEP wasn't concerned about this being a habitat area for the birds,
It is.
but as far as this location, there's really no vegetation in that
Not a lot
location.
right now,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, and for construction access, this was the parking area, there's 2 cars, so that's gonna be the construction access to get down to the lower area. It kinda has to happen concurrent with the house, because once the house is there and the parking's there, you can't get access down in there.
I understand that, and
Okay.
I understand there isn't as much vegetation on that side, but it isn't very far across to the other side where you have a lot of migratory bird activity.
Yeah.
And you're going to be disturbing them, and they're coming in, so how fast are you going to do this?
I think it's gotta happen when,
As soon as we have a builder that can do the work.
Yeah.
I want it to be already under construction, but we're not yet, but hopefully March, April timeframe, hopefully.
That's
April,
just when
maybe I
those,
should say April
it's
timeframe.
just when those ducks start to nest. So,
I mean, the house construction itself is probably gonna be probably more disturbing than, you know.
Yeah.
This earthwork and riprap isn't gonna take very long. I mean, it's a very small site, you know.
Estimates are like 1 to 2 weeks kind of thing. It's
Yeah, it's not a long time period to do that. It's the house that's gonna be the long.
mostly a planting exercise, I think.
Yeah,
Once those pieces are in, then it's backfilling, it's planting. The grass is back in. Under where those houses are today, there's nothing there now except gravel.
and so your excavator's gonna come in from that side, right? Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
And then we gotta put mats down. Looks like over in this area, if he's gonna be placing that riprap, we have to place mats over the existing marsh grass so that, we keep that protected. And that was one of the DEP requirements. They were pretty adamant in Army Corps about protecting the grass that's there.
If you don't, you're gonna be doing clam diggers walk all through
Exactly.
there.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
I guarantee you're gonna sink.
yeah.
Okay.
And I did email Werner, we did get a response from DEP, that was one permit we've been waiting on. It's been a slow process at DEP, but I believe they sent it for signing, and we should be getting that momentarily,
Okay.
so.
On one of your diagrams, you showed some trees. You're not gonna be doing anything with the trees, right?
That was probably in this location where we're doing the undercutting. And that's probably was a section through that slope there. We're not planting trees, it's to show the existing trees that are there and how we're protecting the,
But you're not taking any out or
No.
putting any
No.
in?
No.
Okay,
They're just part of the slope.
yeah.
okay. I don't have any other questions.
Oh, great. No, I think I'm good.
Okay,
All right.
I'm good.
Want to declare this complete, move this to be a complete application?
No, I'll move to make it complete, or second it, whatever you want.
Whatever, okay. You can second, I'll move it and you second it. Now, all in favor? Okay. Very good. And so we'll see you again on March
4th.
March 4th.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. And we'll have the public hearing on March 4th. Now, you're of course staying around for our other public hearing that we're having after Mr. Walsh.
This guy?
Well, you're the only one, I mean, you live
Oh, that's
in
right.
town, so you have to stick around for my public, otherwise you wouldn't be public.
So we keep it short, you can go home early.
Anyway. Okay.
Steve.
Good evening.
Proceed. Mr.
Thank you.
Walsh.
Bill Walsh, Walsh Engineering, and I'm here with Sean Dumas from the Kennebunkport Marina. I'm gonna hand out quickly a letter that we got from the River Committee. We got this today.
Yeah, we
so
saw
I thought
that.
I would-
And
We
we
saw it.
emailed it,
Okay.
actually. which
We
was
did?
nice.
Okay.
Yeah,
You
we
want
got it.
paper copies?
No.
You good? Okay. So we're here presenting today for a site plan review for the application of 2 new floats at the marina. The purpose of these floats is to provide space for a sewage pump-out station for the marine vessels, all boats that are in the river. The property, as I'm sure you all know, is the Kennebunkport Marina. It is, this is the marina is right here, 67 Ocean Avenue. You probably know Chick's here, Yachtsman here. The parcel itself, we have outlined in the dark line there, is about 1.34 acres. Good part of that is only 0.42 acres of that is upland, the rest of it extends out into the river. So it's this piece here. The use is marina, as I said, and it is actually an allowed use. It's in the riverfront zone, which is an allowed use. So we have the dock system on the site. We have the marina building itself, which has a little store and some offices in it, and a little residential rental unit right there. So the project, the objective of this project really is just that, to put in this pump out station, which will be right closest. This is the sort of U-shaped dock system, but the floats that are proposed are gonna be parallel with the shoreline. They're gonna be between the existing dock and the shoreline, right here. So you're kind of in this no man's land between the dock and the shoreline. The purpose of it is that there's not a pump out station, believe it or not, in the river today. So there's no place for boaters to pump their boats out right now. So I think that objective in itself is a very good thing for the health of the river and what happens, you know.
So they're pumping it into the river right now?
They're not supposed to. I'm not saying what they do, but,
As a marina, we are not.
yes, no-
Individual boat owners
Some-
have no resource in the river
that,
to accommodate that need, so
Yeah.
we will hope for the best and
That's what I wondered.
yeah,
So this will be the only one at any of the marinas?
exactly, is the only
there are
one.
none.
There are
There used to be a
zero.
public one maintained by the town, in a float in the middle of the river prior to my tenure here, but my understanding is years ago that was left unattended or sank or something, and it was never reestablished. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you don't go,
No,
just go over to Sean to
that's
speak,
great.
so
That's
that
good
everybody
information.
Yeah, so I
Chris, you're a
can
wonderful
repeat
worker.
that, as Sean said, there was one pump out apparently that the River Committee, I think, put in the river at one time. It was floating, I think, out in the river, Sean, is that correct? And it wasn't used a whole lot, and eventually just became more of a hassle, I think, to run it than not, didn't have much capacity in it. So this system will have, on the floats, there will be the pump system. There'll be a couple of hoses that run out, so there's a possibility to get out at the end of the river, at the end of the docks on both of these. There'll be pump connections right there, as well as one on the inside of the U, I'll call it the U of it. The pump will sit on one of those floats, and it will pump right into the sewer line that is underneath the marina. So we're not digging it around at all, we're going through, and the marina's elevated. We're getting underneath that to connect the hose into the
Public system.
public system.
Town-
Wow.
Exactly.
Town sewer.
That's
Town
amazing.
sewer, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I
And
think
you'll
it's,
have permits for that aspect.
exactly. It makes that part of it simple. It's all above ground.
So
and-
you don't have tanks that'll have to be repumped out or anything?
No, it's connecting right into the municipal sewer system.
Great.
Sean did meet with the sewer district and had discussions with them, and they're ongoing, discussions about how this is gonna happen, but essentially, they weren't concerned at all about this.
Other than treating it like a new hookup, they were very comfortable.
Yeah, very comfortable with the sewage that was coming into it, wasn't a problem for them. So, there's a real positive, obviously, a real positive impact to the river here, if we
So
can get this connected.
Any of the boaters, not just the ones in the marina, can hook up
It's-
to this?
Yeah, anybody can, basically you come in and they, they put the hose in.
And it's a
they-
pay thing.
It's actually gonna be free, they're gonna do it free of charge,
Oh,
so it's.
for you.
Yeah,
Wow.
again, really good for the, water quality of the river and the health of the river to get this implemented. So, we met with the selectmen today on site. They came and looked at it. They have to approve that, as you probably know, as for docks on the river. They had no issues with it. I think Werner can confirm that, but no issues, and I think they expect a positive vote at their next meeting on that. We will require a NERPA permit through DEP, which we are going to submit here shortly, and also Army Corps needs to approve both of these. We've talked with both of them, don't see any real issue with this. Everybody understands the positive outcome of this, and we don't see any problem with that, so. Very much trying to get it done before the season starts, so we're pushing just as hard as we can to make sure that gets done, so we have that capacity in the river.
you mentioned, I think in there that they were gonna come out during the winter. They're going to be stored?
They're seasonally, I think that's probably what we may have to do for DEP, that they could be seasonal floats. I think we have to work that through with DEP and see what they will allow or not allow. So, the preference would be to keep it in, just because it's easier than hauling them out and bringing it out, but, we're gonna wrestle that through
Could
with
the ice
DEP.
be an issue with the float? Is that?
It's the same as the dock system that's in there right now, so I don't think it would be any different than what's happening now. It obviously can be, but it shouldn't be any problem.
You have 44 slips in there?
44, is that what you?
40 to 44, something
Yep.
like that, yep, in that spot.
I was just wondering whether this is an expansion of structure under nonconformance in any way?
I mean, so the way that we've looked at this is that these, these particular floats, because it's not adding any slips to this site. And so it doesn't, in our view, it doesn't trigger us to review any parking requirements or anything of that nature, relative to slip space or any other type of use. Because these components are out in the river, they're beyond the area that you would calculate for lot coverage, and so it's not a,
That's what I was wondering, because
Yeah, you're
it
not
seemed
doing-
like, under 511 or 510, the slips would be considered coverage, wouldn't they?
Well, coverage, whenever you look at the definition of a lot, the definition of lot really goes at the upland component piece of it. It doesn't take you out into the water. So definitionally, whenever you look at lot, these don't come into play as far as a coverage.
And this doesn't,
Perspective.
it doesn't make additional rentable space?
That's right, so we're not adding
Not
any
at all.
slips, doesn't
See,
trigger us.
Expense.
So
Yeah.
you're basically just adding to the use, the same use?
Right,
And not
yeah,
increasing the structure, and the setback seems to be right,
yeah. I
Yep.
mean, there's no issue with setbacks here.
okay.
Could
You
I please-
mentioned deed restrictions, what were the deed restrictions?
I
Any of them pertain to this? Somewhere in your application, you mentioned, it mentions in the deed there are restrictions on 2 other deeds. Do any of them affect any of this?
I don't believe so, but honestly, Nina, I don't know the answer to that, so I'll have to,
Because you only gave us 1 deed in there.
yeah, none that I'm aware of, but we can certainly check that.
Well, towards the end of that deed, there are a couple of references to restrictions. You might want to just take a look and make sure.
I think they might be height restrictions on the building.
It's
I-
possible.
Yeah, I think that's what those are.
The people across the street do have some
Yeah,
visibility.
visibility, yeah, they're,
restrictions. Our trees can't grow us beyond a certain height, things like that,
right.
so.
So it's a view easement,
It's a view
basically.
easement,
I think
yeah.
that's the stuff I'm aware of.
Yep,
Okay.
yeah, I'm looking at this, water pipe easement. I think the two, Masiello and Katz, I'm not sure I think those might be the view ones possibly, but I can check into that for you and let you know.
It would
about that.
just to
Yep,
ensure that we're
Absolutely.
okay.
yep,
The Mousom Water Company dated September 15th, 1896, so that's an important piece.
hopefully they
Wow.
don't.
Well, I just found on the web, I looked through old postcards and pictures of Kennebunkport, and
Sure.
I found your marina with only, 8 slips in
Wow.
there. I'm not gonna question you as to when the extra ones went in.
A long time ago. Yeah, so we can check all of those and make sure we don't have any issue. I don't believe we do, but we'll check them.
Okay.
Could I please have the paper, the copy of the email?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I have a copy.
That's great, thank you.
All right, I get that. Thanks.
The second page of that is from the River Committee. We met with them last
Yep,
night.
excellent.
Yeah. And the selectmen were happy today at the,
Yeah,
Yeah.
all right, they were,
Yep. Yeah, no, they were supportive of the project.
Good.
Yep.
yep,
I would think so.
yeah. Yeah, it is truly a very positive thing for the river.
Okay. Well, you want to make a motion here?
I'd like to make a motion to
Approve? To complete.
to complete.
That it's complete.
I'll second that.
In favor? Okay, so, again, March 4th,
March 4th, public hearing.
public hearing.
Looking forward to it.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And Sean, we expect it to be not quite as long a collection of hearings as your last. Anyway, we have other business. We have a public hearing scheduled to discuss revisions to the land use ordinance relative to notice requirements. And the short form of this is that the local daily paper went out of business, and we have to change the notice requirements to say 3 days in order to be able to go with like the Kennebunk Post or something. So, that's what the revisions discuss, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, the basic gist is that we'd have been primarily stuck with the Press Herald as far as dealing with the notice requirements. And as a practical matter, the Press Herald, costs anywhere from 2 to 3 times as much, was part of it, which, would be just cost that would also be borne back to the applicant. I mean, we also looked at this as an opportunity to recognize that, in many ways, paper print and paper newspaper is quickly becoming somewhat defunct, and recognizing that, that a lot more folks get their notice and news, electronically, either via notices through the town's website or in some other fashion. So we actually, we think that this gives more opportunity for notice than currently if you were to, try to grab the local paper and, look for the third page from the back on the extremely tiny print of
Right.
public notice, which is basically what, what this is, the current ordinance requires, so.
No, I like it. My only concern was, I mean, Ed made a comment that he didn't like the and/or because it tends to add a level of uncertainty. And, but as what seems to always happen with these things is they're done deals by the time they show up to us to do the public hearing. So,
Correct, yeah, the public hearing at this point is a formality, required by,
yes, and
by
our
state
public is
law.
rapidly
Yep.
disappearing, so, thank you
I'll second
guys.
the
We'll
motion,
see.
yeah. For it.
So I guess I will open the public hearing. And hearing no public, I will close the public hearing.
Right.
And that's all. It doesn't need to do anything else.
That's right,
because,
no, doesn't require any, any action by the board, so.
Yeah,
Okay. Well,
So-
why did I show up to this selectmen meeting? Tell me again.
oh, yeah, the one that was supposed to be, there was a meeting last week when I was in
Yeah.
Spain.
Right,
Did you get a,
we didn't have a quorum,
Oh, you didn't?
yep.
is
So
that
hen-
why this is
So
here?
hence we held it tonight.
Okay.
Okay. So we
Well,
don't show
it
up and
works.
don't have a quorum, it just comes here.
Yeah, we're just required to hold a public hearing on it, and so, we've just, as a practical matter, we've always typically done the selectmen's and the planning board just on, at the same meeting. That's just been kind of a matter of practice, but there's no requirement to do it that way.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this works fine.
yep.
So I guess we can have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Okay,
Yeah,
and
it's
I'll,
been unanimous all night.
yeah, that's right, that's us. Anyway, so.